Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. Happy Wednesday to you. My name is Christian Barnes. I am the founder and lead financial coach of Do Better Financial, and welcome to We Economy Wednesday. Every Wednesday we get together, we have a little chat about the things that are going on in the world, i.e., stimulus package. And the last few weeks, and continuing this week, we have been talking about just some different things that I think can help you in this process of not only surviving this pandemic. Obviously, I don't give health tips other than wash your hands, but to get on the other side of this with some sort of skill or something that you want to actually have accomplished in your life, rather than just getting on the other side and being like, ooh, I didn't die. Now, let me be clear. If you are somebody whose life has been completely turned upside down, like most of us, and you only have the emotional capability to just keep yourself alive right now, that is an accomplishment. Don't let anybody make you feel bad about that. If, however, you are in a different spot, this is for you. So as you saw from the title today, we're going to be talking about your comfort zone. Now, I have a confession to make. I like being comfortable. Whether it's comfy clothes, comfy food, comfort food, as it's more colloquially known, or familiar, comfortable relationships, I really enjoy being comfortable, having that settled in. I know what's coming. I enjoy what's happening, feeling. And I know I'm not alone, right? We have shoe brands, cars, and an entire clothing setup called athleisure dedicated to being comfort. As humans, we seek comfort and we avoid pain, struggle, and effort. But this path, this living in that comfort zone bubble frequently leads to stagnation and sometimes even destruction, right? If you eat too much mac and cheese, guilty, you will find yourself packing on some pounds. If you only wear athleisure, you probably won't notice those pounds. Guilty again. Athleisure and, flowy dresses. If you get too comfortable in your relationships, you can start to take them for granted, right? So the truth about our comfort zone is it can silently kill our relationships, our health, our dreams, our finances, and so much more. When you're used to being sedentary, physical activity is outside your comfort zone. When you've been single for years and you just do what you want to do when you want to do it, compromising within your young new marriage is outside of your comfort zone. When you spend money like it's burning a hole in your pocket, budgeting and saving is outside of your comfort zone, but it's worth it. Each of the things that I described will take you outside of your comfort zone, which means you'll be uncomfortable for a time, but it will lead you to something that's better than comfort. What could that be? Accomplishment. As you know, last week I launched a challenge to try three new things for the month of New January. The details below. You can check out last week's video for details on exactly what that is. But my goals were specific to my business and my spiritual life. But I found God trying to reach into other areas. Okay. There were areas that I decided I was going to keep off limits because I wanted to stay comfortable, right? But the night before this challenge began, I was wrestling with one of these areas and I said to myself, but this makes me uncomfortable. And in that moment, I heard in reply, you will never accomplish anything if you're comfortable every day. I'll say it again. You will never accomplish anything if you're comfortable every day. Now, there was another word that played in my head in there for emphasis, but I'll let you use your imagination. So I posted this phrase in the New January Challenge group, and Moniqua turned it into what I think is a more powerful statement, mantra, or affirmation. I can accomplish the impossible if I risk being uncomfortable. Right? So if you say that to yourself, it reminds you that you're not, that what it is that you're trying to do or what it is that God may be calling you to do is worth the risk, right? We need to remember and remind ourselves that growth is uncomfortable. Progress is uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable, but change is our chance to do better. It's our chance to accomplish the impossible, right? But we have to risk our comfort. If you're like me, Maybe you're thinking, okay, fine, being uncomfortable has its uses, but I'm not trying to jump out of a plane or run a marathon. That's crazy. Is this just me? Are there any other catastrophists out there? Anybody else whose mind spirals to the absolute extreme instead of thinking, maybe there are some steps in between? Yes, maybe. Well, if you're those people, come back to me, all right? You are my tribe. Return. Your thoughts are running away. What are some ways that we can break out of our comfort zone actively and on purpose and intentionally that don't necessarily require us to go to the extreme? All right. Number one, identify the goal. So this goal might be broad, right? It might be something like do better financially. See what I did there? This is the big fuzzy idea that you have about how you want the future to look compared to your current reality. But the second thing you need to do, right, that idea, that goal, that big fuzzy goal is not the end of the road. You don't just come up with the idea. A lot of us are dreamers, and that's really easy to do. The next one is to narrow your focus. That do better financially is too broad, right? That is not an action that I can take. So we want to get to some actions. So the goal that you said, do better financially, is going to have multiple components. Maybe increase savings, get out of debt, invest for the future, give more, etc. Right? So these are all great. But which of those do you want to focus on right now? You can try to attack them all at once, but when you're trying something new, that is a surefire way to get burnt out, overwhelmed, and just flat out give up. Trust me. I have tried. So let's say that for the sake of this conversation, you decide to focus on saving, specifically your emergency fund. So now we've narrowed down our focus. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to set a timetable. I am a master procrastinator. I tend to put off the unfamiliar or the uncomfortable if I have no time by which said thing needs to be done. I can give you an example of this in my job. There was something that was assigned to me on Tuesday at noon. I did not necessarily want to do it. It seemed hard, but I had a deadline. It's tomorrow at 10:30, and I also needed to make this video. So I got it done by 3 because I needed to work on this. That timetable helped me move along, right? You want your timetable to be a combination of realistic and optimistic, right? We're looking for a Goldilocks here. So I would like to say you need to have a goal that feels like just the edge of reasonable, right? Slightly like, this sounds a little bit extra, but I think I can do it. You want the goal to be that. So maybe you would say, I want to save $1,000 this month. Now, depending on your income and your situation, this might be too large or too small. But I'd say err on the side of slightly small. Why might I say that? Because a quick win can go a long way to giving you, fueling your motivation. The idea here is to pick a short-term focus that will allow you to win so that you can be like, yes, I can do this. I want you to have that feeling when you hit this goal. Yes, I can do this, right? So if you're somebody who has never put on running shoes or you don't even own them, your first goal probably shouldn't be a marathon. Maybe it would be a 3K, right? Slightly less far-offy and slightly less likely to discourage you to the point of no longer trying, okay? Next thing you're going to do is make a plan. So if you're going to be saving your emergency fund, where's the money going to come from? Where's the time going to come from? That was not words before. This step is where you sketch out the component parts of your goal that will be required to reach the goal. So write down the things you'll need. So you'll need to do some research. Then you need to prioritize those things. So for instance, one of my goals is I'm on a worship challenge, right? The idea is to spend some time every day worshiping God, not necessarily asking him for anything, but thanking him for things or praising him for who he is. Sounds pretty simple, but for me, I frequently have issues with finding the time to do said thing. Not because it's not available, but because it's not a priority. So what was something that I needed to do when making a plan? First thing I did was choose a devotional because that helps me in my trying to make a daily habit of spending time in God's word and talking to him. And this challenge also helped me with that, right? Because it's one of the things I'm doing for this challenge, and I don't know, I like to win, right? I'm not a big fan of failure, but that's a separate day. So then you're going to prioritize those things. So let's say your goal is your savings, right? And maybe you need to, here we go. This is how we prioritize. We want to make sure we do one thing. Okay, so you may have a list of 8 things. I need to open a savings account. I need to, I need to set up direct drafts. I need to, insert 18 things here that you think you need to do to be able to save more. The first thing that you might need to do is clean your house for cash, right? Make day 1. Again, we're dedicated to one thing today. We're not going to work on this for 5 hours. You haven't worked on it at all. Let's work up, okay? So maybe the first thing you do is clean the couch, right? You clean out the couch for change. You empty everybody's pockets. You go around and gather. And that'll give you a quick win because you'll have some money right there, right off the bat, that allows you to go, well, I'm this far on my goal, okay? And just like that, you've taken a step. Right? Maybe your day 1 is to find some stuff to sell online or find a way to bring in income, but use the list you made in the step before, right? The kind of list we just made up, and pick out a couple of simple, quick wins for the first few days of trying to work on this goal. You don't have to start couponing, stop shopping, start a side business, and walk on hot coals all today, okay? You don't have to do all of that stuff at once. You need to take one action, one step towards your goal every day, or at least on a regular basis, depending on your goal, what your goal is. And then you're gonna take another step and another. One day didn't go as planned. That's okay. The goal is a level of consistency, but not perfection. I can tell you right now, this week, as I mentioned earlier, I got assigned something that's due tomorrow. It was kind of intense. My day job is currently very busy. And so some of the things that I would have liked to done every day this week towards my business, they're going to get saved for my Friday off. I'm going to be honest, right? So have I given up on the goal? No. But right now, what consistency looks like is me consistently bringing in my paycheck, amen, because that is how we fund the living and the jobbing and the do better financially, is to consistently bring in my paycheck. That's just job number 1. And then to do the other things that I care about when I have the time. And so for me, I have this Friday off. That's going to be what I'm dedicating myself to, catching up on some of the things that I have missed. But also taking some time when I can find it to work on the things that I'm actually interested in instead of maybe watching YouTube or scrolling through Facebook or playing Scrabble Go. I literally had to delete that app from my phone, okay? All right, last but not least, we need to acknowledge the quick wins. Why is this even on the list, Christian? Because a lot of the goals we have will extend past our neat little windows, right? Saving your emergency fund, you have a goal to do it in a month, but maybe it takes a month and a half because you get laid off or, whatever. Maybe it takes 4. Maybe you need to shift where you are. And maybe winning, if you've been laid off and your goal is to save $1,000, maybe a win for you is just that you had the budget together so that you didn't go into debt when you lost your job. That is a win. Don't discount that stuff, particularly when things change and when they get hard. So if you have a long-term goal, the end is the goal, but you'll never get there without a journey. So let's celebrate that too. So we tend to associate buying things or eating sugary, salty, fatty foods with celebration. I know I do. We had cheesecake from Mother's Day. It was delicious. I can't eat anymore, which is fine in moderation, but it's not a daily basis sort of thing. So when we're talking about finding ways to acknowledge your wins or to celebrate your wins, think about things like sharing with peers. I love that about the new January. One of those things I love about the new January challenge is that I can unabashedly share my wins with other people, right? Another one is to give yourself what I like to call visual rewards. My sister is a mindset coach, and she talks about doing something like filling jars with marbles. It sounds silly, but it gives you a little bit of a quick win to go, hey, look, I did the thing. I got another marble in the jar, right? Giving yourself gold stars. That stuff works for kids, but you can give yourself the permission to allow it to work for you too. There are actually some more suggestions in the description. Pretty cool. There's some stuff about mantras, taking time for yourself, things like that. So take those suggestions and give yourself permission to celebrate the journey. So if you're ready to start this journey, if you're ready to risk being uncomfortable to accomplish the impossible, join the new January challenge. I've been talking about it a lot, and that's because I think it's a really awesome opportunity for all of us to interact and support one another as we go on the journey, to encourage one another and to celebrate those wins. You can check out the link in the description, or you can just go search New January Challenge on Facebook. It's a Facebook group. You can jump in there, list the 3 things you're working on, encourage others when you see that they post, and feel free to jump into the fray, grab your calendar, and keep track of what you're doing every day, okay? So that wraps up our inspirational portion of the video. We're going to jump into our stimulus updates as per usual. First up is our stimulus payment. So the deadline to update direct deposit on the Get My Payment tool was today at noon. I posted about it earlier this week. Once again, the IRS did not give us much time and notice that this is when the deadline was. I literally found out that the deadline was Wednesday on Monday. But it was today at noon. So if you did not put your information into that tool, you will be getting a paper check in the order, reverse adjusted gross income order that I've discussed in the last few videos. So wherever they are on that path, you will eventually get a check. Once you get a notification, you can still check the progress of when you're going to get that check on the Get My Payment tool. Once they say you're getting a check or that your check will be mailed, it could take up to 2 weeks from that date for you to actually receive your check in the mail. If you'd like to track it though, you can sign up for the USPS Informed Delivery app or option. You just go to usbs.com, link is in the description, and you sign up to be notified about any mail coming to your home. I actually have this. We signed up for it when we moved from our last place. Just because, I wanted to make sure that all of our mail got here, and if something was getting delivered to the old apartment by accident, I wanted to be able to go cash it if it was something I leave, like a debit card or whatever, right? So fair warning, USPS Informed Delivery is nice. I feel like it works very well for packages. It's sometimes iffy on mail. I have been known to go out, get my mail, and then later that day get an informed delivery notice telling me what was in my mail that's currently sitting in my house, right? So just be aware. Sometimes it can be a little bit delayed, but it couldn't hurt. At the very least, if you go out to get your mail one day and there's nothing in there, and then you get informed delivery saying you should have got it that day, then you may need to start looking, right? But the nice thing is they take a picture of the piece of mail so you can see where it was delivered, which could be really useful for people who move around a lot. All right. Next, SSI recipients who have set up direct deposit or have a Direct Express card should get their direct deposit today, May 13th. That's according to the IRS. So if you are on SSI, which is the means tested Social Security income, you should get your direct deposit or Direct Express deposit today. They will begin mailing checks for SSI recipients this Friday, May 15th. And again, those could take up to 2 weeks to actually get to you. So you might not get that check until what's 15 plus 14, 29, the 29th of May. All right. I had to do the quick math, but I made it. All right. FYI, these checks are not considered when calculating your income for the next 12 months. So you don't have to worry about this putting a damper in the amount that you are eligible to receive for your SSSI. Next, emergency student grants. Posted a little bit about this last week. Earlier this week, there are now emergency student grants that were made available by the CARES Act through a lot of universities. So I'm sure a few of you heard some noise previously about universities getting PPP loans. That was not actually true. There was a provision under the CARES Act that gave money to schools, which was then to be dispersed to students and to be utilized to take care of other people who were no longer getting paid their regular income because school has closed, right? So check your school's website for details on how to apply. The requirements vary widely. I've seen some schools that are offering $250 and some schools that are offering $8. I've seen some schools whose applications are closing at the end of this week and some that doesn't seem to have a closing date. So just check your school's website to see exactly what the requirements are and when you need to apply by and how much you are eligible for. Next, large car insurance companies have started giving refunds of premium to policyholders in light of the pandemic. So check out the list below in the link to see if yours is one of them. You can see a lot of companies like the State Farms and the USAAs, people like that. If your company isn't listed, give them a call. You have some leverage right now. You can let them know that you're driving way less, right? Assuming you're not essential. And also that a lot of other companies are offering this. It'll give you an opportunity to negotiate. At the very least, you can ask them to update the amount of miles you travel per year and lower it, which should in turn lower your premium. I tried to do that last month. We'll see how it goes. But I also have State Farm. I'm supposed to be getting some money back. They ain't told me nothing about that, but I'm gonna let y'all know when they do. Next, PPP. So the SBA has finally issued some guidance around PPP and who needs to be concerned about returning their funds. So there were some, we talked last week that there might be some people who, based on some ambiguous language in the PPP loan paperwork, may need to return their loan because they had access to other funds like savings accounts. There is now a safe harbor for borrowers, and this includes all of your affiliates. And so that's something that you need to look up to find out the specifics of. I believe that means if you are like a holding company of some sort and you have multiple restaurants or whatever that applied for PPP, they're going to sum those up all together, if that makes sense. So there's a safe harbor for borrowers, including affiliates, that have a principal for less than $2 million of PPP funds. Basically, that means that they are not going to be looking into, they're not going to be auditing, I guess is the word you want to use for it, those people who have PPP loans for less than $2 million. This should give some borrowers some peace of mind because they can go ahead and use the funds that they've already been granted without fear of being audited or not meeting the good faith certification. So that's what we talked about last week. Good faith certification was supposed to mean that you didn't have access to funds elsewhere. If your PPP loan is below $2 million, they're not going to be auditing you. They're going to assume that you meet the criteria for good faith certification. This does not mean that if your loan is above $2 million that you won't meet the qualifications automatically, but your loan is subject to review. Now let's talk about this a little bit, right? The SBA does have quite a few employees, but the sheer volume of loans that they have dispersed means that they just don't have the bandwidth to go digging and figure out if each and every person who applied for and received one of these loans actually needed it. Number one. Number two, they have decided to limit it by that $2 million cutoff. So they're like, we're not even going to worry about y'all. And I think the only exception is if they hear that you are some sort of fraudster, which this actually happened to a couple of guys. They had applied for PPP loans and received them for companies that had 0 employees, right? Or had, 0 employees. Like they were defunct already, but they applied anyway. And so those guys got investigated, but I think their loans were also more than $2 million, but don't quote me. So if you shady, or if you seem shady, you got multiple loans with the same names on it, trust, even if you're below $2 million, they might come looking at you. But if you just applied for one loan and you're less than $2 million, you should be good to go. If you're over $2 million, that doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be audited. And even if you are, if you needed the loan, you'll be fine, right? If they determine that you do not qualify for the loan, that you not have qualifying need for the loan, they're going to deny your forgiveness request. Now, remember, at the end of 8 weeks after you get this PPP, in order to you have to request forgiveness through your bank. So when you do that, If they determine that you did not qualify for the need-based part of the loan, they will deny your forgiveness request and ask that you repay the loan, which is, I mean, it basically just turns into a loan, right? If you return your loan, if you're one of these people who technically didn't need it and you're like, hey, I just got it in case, but I don't really need it. If you return it by 5/14, which is Thursday, tomorrow, if you return your loan by May 14th, you are eligible to use the employee retention credit instead. So that is a tax credit. Obviously, it's not going to be as much as a $2 million loan, but it's still a good option. And it's not bad, particularly if you didn't qualify for the loan forgiveness. All right. One more thing. Unemployment. This is going to only pertain to people who are in the state of Texas, because that's the unemployment that I typically research, because everybody's is drastically different and I don't have time to research 50 states, okay? 50 states plus Washington, D.C., okay? If you are offered your job back but meet any of the criteria below, you can reject the offer and continue to receive unemployment if you are high risk or live with a high risk person. That high risk in this case means over the age of 65. Number 2, if you are a member of your household is diagnosed with and unrecovered from COVID and the 14-day quarantine hasn't passed. So if you have COVID, someone who lives in your home has COVID and either has not recovered or has recovered but the 14-day window of quarantine post-recovery hasn't ended, you can decline to go back to work and they will continue to pay you. Reason number 3, if you're currently under quarantine after having close contact with someone who did have with COVID or someone who had it, right? So if you're somebody who worked, I don't know, maybe like an HEB, and the guy that you normally stands next to you in the checkout stand got diagnosed and they sent both of y'all home. If you're still in your 14-day window, HEB wouldn't do that to you anyway, but this is going to be an example. If you're still in your 14-day window of isolation, then you could tell HEB, hey, I'm going to stay on unemployment. Again, you probably weren't taking unemployment. HEB probably paying you because HEB do their stuff right, but you get what I'm saying. Last one, but not least, and probably the most important for most people, if your child's school or daycare is closed and there are no child care alternatives, even if you're offered your job back, you can turn it down and continue to receive unemployment if it's for one of these reasons. I'm putting the link, I put the link below with the details to make sure you know exactly how you can qualify for this, because there are a few stipulations. You have to be tested by specific agencies. You have to have certain types of doctor's notes, so on, so forth. Be sure to get the details before you turn down that job, or once you turn down that job, be ready to explain yourself, okay? The last thing you want to do is end up getting kicked off of unemployment mistakenly, because a lot of people are still having a hard time getting on it, particularly if they need to call in. If you need to make calls to the agency, try to use the call windows that they've established in the description below. And also, I believe their call windows are now 24 hours. I've been hearing good, promising things about staying up into night owl hours, but I've also been hearing that a lot of people still can't get through. So, set it on redial and just keep hitting the button. That's all I can tell you. I wish I had more. I really do. But I'm going to keep an eye on the unemployment situation in the state of Texas as well. So that wraps up our stimulus package update. If you are ready to bust out of the comfort zone that is silently killing your dreams, please come join the New January Challenge. Search for it on Facebook. We would be glad to have you and hopefully encourage you and support you as you pursue the goal that you have set for yourself. Thank you so much for joining me today on this Weeconomy Wednesday. Again, my name is Christian Barnes at Do Better Financial. I will see you next week. Bye-bye.